Alright, today we got another Collapse of the Republic. This one, Talent Tree Guide and Review. Today we're talking about another universal spec, the Senator Talent Tree. And, okay, right away, I don't know if you can see this, good. There's a shark ambassador. That's the picture they chose. It's so ridiculous that will forever be burned in my brain. I cannot get that out of my head. And I'm gonna be so disappointed if I start reading this, and it's not filled with, like, undersea creature-themed talking talents, or maybe not just talking, but like in a combat situation. You're in a combat situation, right? And there's a talent where you can spend a destiny point to just Zoidberg ink everywhere and leave the room, whoop, 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 like that. That needs to be in here, and if it's not, I'm gonna ask for a return. And also I'll ask for a return if we don't have a talent where, so basically you're like in a debate, and then someone else is like, the senator from Moncala's, or whatever they're from, the senator from Moncala's plan is fiscally irresponsible, and Senator, do you have a rebuttal? And you just bite their head off. If that's not in here, like, I'm just gonna throw the book out, and then get a refund. So respected delegate, where basically you have a better time interacting with certain institutions, with the other, what was it, respected scholar and knowledge-based characters. It was like interacting with universities or areas of learning, which doesn't quite fit as naturally in this type of universe as, you know, talking to government people. It's called Star Wars. Wars involved, it's very likely you'll be talking to, like, governments and stuff, so it's more likely respected delegate will come into play for you than a respected scholar for your knowledge buddy, but of course it's up to the GM and the thing you're running. Improve Nobody's Fool. Is that new? It sounds familiar. So Nobody's Fool, as I've talked about, it's sort of the primo talking defense talent. People have a harder time getting one over on you with a couple different talking checks. And the improved version is basically like a counterattack. So not only do they have a harder time convincing you in various ways, but also it harms them in some way. And depending on what kind of enemy they are, it actually could really harm them severely. And we have another talent that helps with two different talking checks, and in two different ways. It can either make it easier for you to do these talking checks, or it can make it harder for other people to do these talking checks against you. So, better with talking checks, and also more talking defense. Hard to say, but it might actually be one of the most defensive, well, it's definitely one of the most defensive, might be the most defensive talker in the game, but again, hard to say. It's certainly one of the more interesting, 3 different ways to defend against talking, which is great. We also got a couple ranks of 2 basic talents, which will help with most of the talking checks, really, but just in 2 different ways. Just some very basic baby's first talking type talents, although the one that's probably more helpful to you in the long run is for the skills that are most central to this tree. So that works out really well. And I can't believe we missed this talent, Inspiring Rhetoric, I can talk, basic and improved version. Basically, it's sort of the opposite of Scathing Tirade I talked about 2 trees ago. Instead of debuffing enemies, it buffs allies. So you have a chance, assuming you roll well enough, which already I like that. I like rolling checks, rolling dice to see if I get to do the thing, as opposed to just, oh, I can do the thing. Not as interesting. This can help people in different ways, and inside combat, outside of combat, in a wide variety of ways and situations, and it's just very useful general help for your allies. They're really going all out for these last couple of specializations, especially the universal ones, but just in general, like, every idea they had, like, screw it, we're priming up our 2nd edition, which you'll be able to pre-order while you could still pre-order stuff from 1st edition, because that's how we do things, apparently. Get out every idea you've ever had and put it into these talent trees, so all the previous talent trees from early on feel like useless garbage. Except for Politico. Politico is bae, and Politico will always be perfect. So we have 4 talents. I think one I've seen before, Diplomatic Immunity, maybe not. It's a defensive talent. It can help you in combat. Because you have diplomatic immunity, you can't be shot at. You're a protected class of person during war, I guess. Does it put in the addendum, like, if you're just fighting some gangsters who really do not give a crap about diplomatic immunity, does it not count? I guess in that situation, I would just say that, oh, they recognize you as a diplomat, and they're not going to attack you because they're going to take you alive as a hostage, or maybe for story reasons, or maybe they just don't attack you for no reason. It doesn't have to be explained. It's just, you get the mechanical benefits. That's fine. Yeah, there's no story or narrative requirement for that to work. It's just, it helps you not die in combat better. We have another talent I should have mentioned earlier. It's another talking defense talent. A unique type of talking defense in a way. I mean, not completely unique. Part of it is just, it makes it harder for people to talk at you. The other part, though, is it has a sort of a built-in counterattack of sorts. Depending on how bad the roll is for them, you can spend bad result to do a bad thing to them, which it's more of a narrative bad thing than something that harms them directly, which it can be really helpful with some creativity. It can really help your campaign in the long run, which I really like. It just depends on what the player decides to do, and it can have a huge impact on the campaign, which is awesome. We have another one, which I absolutely adore. In fact, ooh, Jar Jar was a senator, wasn't he? Right? Because we have to rewind the clock to back when I did the Colonist sourcebook review, and we had an entertainer, which some call the Jar Jar spec, because you can do distracting behavior to debuff people. You could be Jar Jar just stumbling around, being an idiot, and bad stuff happens to him. He becomes a senator. You can take this universal specialization and take Blather, where basically you just talk and talk and talk and go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You debuff people by annoying them with your incessant yammering. I love that. That's awesome. If I get this, I would just make a... Can you do a straight line? You can do a straight line. I would just make a straight line right for that talent. That's amazing. Again, we have all these cool ideas. Just shove them into one tree. It doesn't matter if it makes all the other trees look like crap in comparison. Shove them all into one tree. Anyway, we're not done. We're almost done, but we're not done. We have one where you can play the logistics guy. You get to move some resources, or at least have a chance of moving some resources to buff your force in a mass combat check. And you don't have to be the leader of the mass combat, although you totally could. It actually would make a lot of sense for what your stats would be. But you don't have to, and some people might actually disagree with me on that, and obviously they're wrong. We know that they're wrong because look at Cruel Commander in the description there. It specifically says, or refers to mass combat checks of which you are the commander of. Clever Commander does that as well. So the fact that this talent's description doesn't reference that pretty much tells me that you don't have to be the commander. And also, just thematically, you're allocating resources to help the war effort. There's no shark talents. But if you do decide to play anyway, for the most part, you get the most help with presence-based stuff. But one of the talents that uses a check, the check can depend on the user choice, either a presence-based check, or it could be one of the other, the cunning coercion. So if you want more of a cunning coercion bent, you can kind of focus on that and get a fair amount out of this tree. But really, the edge goes towards presence stuff. 4 in presence, and then, well, ideally a 4 in will. I mean, will is great for talking defense. Not that you need any help with talking defense, but you will be like rock solid. You can't be convinced of anything. The most defensive talker, period, because of the talents you have, and also the stats you would focus on. 4 and 4 and will and presence is great. Oh, I guess if you do that, then you don't really need to lie, although it can't hurt. I guess you could just as easily go 4 in presence and 4 in cunning. I like will better, and I love me my 4-4 builds, you know that. In reality, though, in order to get the most out of the tree, 4-3-3 is probably the best way to go when presence, will, and cunning. And if you do have 1-4, presence is the way to go. But if you really just like the more coercive stuff, and you might even make the case that, well, I have more help with the presence-based talking checks, I don't need as much help there, I might be more balanced as a talker across the board if I have my 3 in presence and a 4 in cunning or will for my coercion or deception, whichever I want to focus on, and then 3 in the other. Or a 4-4, that's a weird one. I don't know if that's really worth it. A 4-4 cunning and will, but you gotta get that 2 in presence, or otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing? So you get a lot of help with those presence-based talking checks. I might have to really sit down and hypotheticalize some dice pools with the 4-4 cunning will, 2 in presence. You could dedicate a 3 into presence eventually. Anyway, this is a really great tree. Please, for the love of God, let your players just take it right out of the gate. My house rule is better than the game's rules. And next time we're going to be talking about, I guess the other universal spec, Deathwatch Warrior, a jetpack specialized Mandalorian warrior. That'll be fun. See you then.